Experiencing a long, lasting friendship can be incredible. It feels great having someone in our corner, especially when we are confident they will be there forever. It can be a beautiful experience to fall in love and explore life with someone. But sometimes it's not so wonderful. Some people don't want to be a part of the construction crew to build something new. They're content with jumping over the wall and doing as they please. Others are lifelong friends who we accidentally cast a blind eye toward by allowing them to do something we would never tolerate with new friends. The key to all relationships is to build relationship bridges from one person's palace to ours. We can invite them in to our palace as a guest, but they can't stay. Each time we meet, they must cross the bridge and obey the road signs. If they break the rules, their entry must be denied. Every relationship bridge has different rules. The rules of your significant other follows are not the same as those set for your mother, your father, or your friend. Every bridge requires upkeep and understanding, and it must be built from a foundation of empathy, humility, and mutual respect. Everyone in the world is an island, and these bridges connect us. The stronger we build and upkeep them, the less likely they are to crumble or burn. In relationships, we must maintain a vigilant eye on all the moving parts. Our primary focus should be on our palace, because the most important relationship we have is with ourselves. Are we doing everything we can to live the highest quality of life? Are we chasing our dreams? Are we living with purpose? And are we taking care of our body? If we lack a solid foundation, our relationship bridges will not have the structural integrity to support the weight of another person's load. We are responsible for how we allow others to manipulate us. God gave us free will, and with this gift was the burden of the adversary. This is our inherent desire for darker things, impulsive behaviors, and selfishness. Its pull is what allows us to resist the divine and to live our life by our own decisions. Like Sarah Connor said from The Terminator, our fate is what we make. With our free will, we have chosen to accept the manipulations others have imposed upon us. Once we begin to realize this, it opens our treasure chest and allows us to gain access to old wisdom more valuable than gold. With our free will, we choose to accept and integrate their sweet whispers into our thoughts and actions. Effectively, we have allowed ourselves to be manipulated. It was a choice. We could have resisted it, but we didn't. In the thick brushstroke of life, most manipulations are encouraged without force. When we are threatened or coerced with violence, free will is tossed out the window because our survival imperative requires it. The threat of or the application of bodily harm is not what I'm addressing, nor am I discussing instances where we lack the ability to make sound judgments due to intoxication, medicines, injuries, or diseases. In those moments, our mind is broken and we lack the ability to make reasonable decisions. We possess the ability to assess the return on investment for all our relationships. We are malleable creatures. As children, we were formed from clay, and as we aged, it hardened into stone. Like the days when we were young, we can be remade. To do this, we must become a sculptor of our own mind by chiseling away the elements that fail to move and inspire our time. With introspection and willful transformation, we can shape our slab into a statue of our own design. Take a moment. Think about the clay used to create the person you are today. Are you happy with what was made, What would you change? Who would you be if you could be reformed into your ultimate dream? Would you be the type who remains centered and grounded in what you believe? Would you broadcast your confidence with genuine passion and love for life? Would you stay true to yourself and be upfront about your values and intentions? Would you refrain from being emotionally reliant and outcome driven by how others think or feel about you? Would you radiate authenticity and self acceptance? Would you have a healthy internal dialogue? Would you refrain from comparing yourself with how others act and dress? Would you seize more opportunities and take more risks? Would you be more competitive? Would you have total faith and conviction in your beliefs, boundaries, and standards? Would you be more passionate, raw, and real? Take a few moments. Think about it. If you could transform yourself into the person you have always wanted to be, what specifically would you change? And then think about what you could do now. What steps could you institute in order to make these changes become a reality? Is this something that you actually want? Would you miss who you were? Or would you be content with the new person you have become? We like to blame everyone else for the hardships that make us feel insane. We cry about all the red flags we should have seen, or repeat the same things about how we seem to always fall into the same nightmarish dream. Woe is me, we scream and whine to anyone willing to listen. How could I have ignored so many red flags? We often say out loud, sometimes even to a crowd, and we blame everyone except ourselves. Our phrase of the day becomes blame, and we shame others for our bad decisions and willingness to be manipulated. The word of the decade is narcissist, and anyone who hurts us will be diagnosed by our expertise in keyboard psychology. Surely the only possible reason they acted so terribly toward us was because they have a self-absorbed disease. Unfortunately, the reality is we suffer with a delusion of inflated self-deification. Truthfully, why wouldn't we? We live in a culture that celebrates trauma like Christmas. We see weakness as wonderful and grant accolades to anyone who wallows in their own misery. Why don't we take responsibility? Responsibility requires confidence to take ownership of our behavior. Having confidence requires work. We must endure hardship to shape ourselves into something significant. Many would rather endure the agony of complacent misery than seize their seconds and become someone who radiates power and strength. Our society celebrates and explores the vice of cowardice. As a culture, we can only muster courage behind a keyboard. Few have the conviction to make eye contact when face to face, let alone the courage to say anything directly or of consequence when having a conversation. The weakest souls of our society are numerous enough to shape our world through the disease of cancel culture. No one is free to share ideas without a threat against our prosperity or ability to feed our family. Another reason we don't take responsibility is because we get stuck inside of negative energy loops. The media and other electronic social media influences overinflate our perception of self-worth while dehumanizing our existence at the same time. It tricks us into believing we are owed something we have not earned. Then when we do not have it, we feel sad and empty. To push against this ever-encroaching maw of our emotional void, we try to fill it with as much instant gratification as we can. This terrible temptation draws us into an infinite negative energy loop. It's like wanting big, strong muscles while being unwilling to work for them. Instead of putting in the energy to change, we inject our muscles with some synth oil, so our arms look the part while we remain weak. We may trick ourselves momentarily into believing our new form looks fantastic, but ultimately, we're aware that it is a fabrication, and we feel worse than we ever did before. Unfortunately, once we have taken this route, it's difficult to change course, and our obsession spirals out of control. At the end of the dark road, our arms are destroyed, and we can no longer move. How could we ever expect to take ownership of our actions when everything seems meaningless and random? Once the negative energy wheel begins to move, it's nearly impossible to make it stop. We are tired and life often seems impossible, especially when we live with seemingly unlimited moving parts. We're inundated with so many details our incorporeal union simply lacks the energy to keep up. A rubber band only has so much rubber no matter how far we stretch it. At the end of the day, how do we take a stand when we feel like a rubber band is about to break? There are very few rewards for doing the right thing, and honest apologies mean nothing. We live in a cruel world where keyboard warriors demand others to make public decrees of guilt and remorse. Yet when the apology is made, it does not end the war on them. As a collective, they whine and cry as they gather their pitchforks and torches before burning other people's lives to the ground. Why would anyone want to rise and take a stand when we know everything will always end bad? How do we stop blaming others for the hardships that make us feel insane? We need to change how we see red flags and analyze why they are ignored when we witness them. In life, we repeat various incarnations of the same mistakes until we have collected enough wisdom to wade through our woe in a wonderful way. We will know we have reached this goal once we start saying, well, I got what I deserved. I should have paid attention to what my gut wanted me to know. We all will have shame, but it will no longer be the blame game. Our wisdom will remind us on a regular basis that we're allowed to be influenced and manipulated. We will refrain from diagnosing everyone who has hurt us as a narcissist. Instead, our soul will remind us that we are adults who were never forced to be with them. To get to this point, we need to explore our creativity, humility, and empathy. It will require many lonely nights of delving deeply into our soul zones to unearth our flaws and faults. As we become the Sherlock Holmes of our own soul, we will discover the clues we need to become someone new. With each shred of truth, we will start seeing the proof of our self-absorbed disease. Once we start witnessing the reality of our own self-deification, we can begin closing the doors of trauma celebration, weakness worship, and our desire to wallow in our own misery. Using these clues, we can unglue our existence from the excuses for why we refuse to take responsibility for our own actions. Once we are capable of taking responsibility for our own actions, it opens a doorway for us to experience long, lasting, and meaningful relationships. Friendships and romantic partnerships are built from the foundation of trust. If our partners and friends believe we are incapable of taking responsibility for our own actions, how can they rely on us or trust us? I can say with absolute certainty that it is miserable to spend time with people who constantly play the blame game, because it's just a matter of time before we are blamed for something we didn't do. It is equally terrible to be in the presence of people who are constantly bitter, angry, or negative. These people are like vampires who seem to steal our energy until we are a withered husk. When we move through life with humility and empathy, it allows us to be there for the people who we love in a meaningful way. Relationships are a give and take. If we are unwilling to give or accept fault, then they will never want to give, and as a result, we will never receive. If you want to experience long-lasting and meaningful relationships, give the best you can, so you might receive the best someone else has to offer. Now, giving your best doesn't mean compromising yourself in the process. Relationships are a give and take. If your partner or friend is always taking, then the relationship is not fair. Life is never fair, but relationships should be. When we encounter someone who is content with jumping over the wall and doing as they please within our spirit palace, we must put an end to it as quickly as possible. Sometimes this is easier said than done, especially with well-established friendships. I believe we should consistently analyze the harmony of our friendships and romantic partnerships. There are those in our life who are granted a pass when they shouldn't be. In my life, I've had a handful of examples. Eno and P. Weasel are just a few who exemplify this phenomena. Old friends are often judged by the rubric of who we were when we met them, instead of the standards we hold today. My advice to you is to hold all of your friends to the same standard. If they care about you, and if you are moving in the same direction, this shouldn't be much of an issue. We accomplish this by building relationship bridges. Every time someone wants something from us, wants to spend time with us, or contribute something to our life, we need to ask ourselves, is this person acting in our mutual best interest? If we believe they are, then they are allowed to pass through the gates of our palace. If they aren't, then they must be denied. Life is too short to waste our time on people who do not care about us. I guarantee you, if you turn the people away from you who are hurting you, you will find someone who will serve as a better friend in the future. Now, with that said, every relationship has different rules. When we hold everyone to the same standard, there is nuance to this. The rules our significant other followers are much different than those we've set for our mother, father, or friend. Every bridge requires upkeep and understanding, and it must be built from a foundation of empathy, humility, and respect. Everyone in the world is an island, and these bridges connect us. The stronger we build and upkeep them, the less likely they are to crumble or burn. This means we must take into consideration the many facets of our relationship. A new friend will not be given the same number of passes someone who's been our good friend for many years would be allotted. Life is like a tapestry, and the longer we have known someone, the deeper our relationship often is. If it is a meaningful and important relationship, there will be numerous strings that connect the two of us. I suggest refraining from unraveling a meaningful relationship at the first sign of turmoil. A good rule of thumb in this instance is to give them a little bit more compassion than what you think they would give you. In life, we often fail to remember the good, and as a consequence, our mind dials in on the bad. When we are hurt or angry, we tend to forget all the good and important moments we've had with this person. So give the benefit of the doubt and explore the problem before dissolving the bond. Ultimately, you must follow the cardinal rule of entrepreneurship in life. You must protect yourself. If your ship sinks, the journey ends at the bottom of the sea. No matter what happens or what you decide, you must protect your spirit palace at all costs. Of course, I'm operating under the assumption that you are living a good and noble life. No one is perfect. We all make mistakes and do terrible things. But as long as you are actively attempting to take the high road by being a good person, protecting yourself at all costs shouldn't be a moral dilemma. If we are protecting our spirit palace and relationship bridges, then we will have a solid enough foundation to take on the load of those we want to hold close. As a result, it will open the doorway for us to have long-lasting and meaningful relationships with the people we adore most.